Let's begin. Welcome, everyone. This is SatiSeva. SatiSeva, friends, is a mindfulness group that is an affinity group associated with Recovery Dharma. And I created this group because 6 years ago, people in the community, in the Recovery Dharma community, were asking for a mindfulness, Buddhist-inspired place for family members, friends, and people in recovery to come together and practice. It is my observation and my belief that we all do better when we can sort of level the playing field and understand that to have negative habit energy is universal. We all have it. For some people, it manifests in the misuse of drugs and alcohol. For other people, it manifests as a negative relationship to food. For other people, it is a negative relationship to intimacy. For another person, it might be some difficulty having some impulse control using social media. The point is that negative habit energy, the things that we do, the patterns of our behavior that inhibit us from living a peaceful, joyful, loving life is universal. So we are here to explore that. SatiSeva, that word means mindful service. Sati, mindful. Seva, service. And so whenever we come into the presence of mindfulness, we are engaging service to ourselves and by extension to one another. SatiSeva is 16 mindfulness practices. And for the last 2 months, we explored the first one. We published a book back in September. So starting in January, we have been reading it slowly, paragraph by paragraph, and exploring the wisdom there. And so we took 2 months to explore the mindfulness practice of awareness, which is a spiritual practice. The first 5 practices of SatiSeva are spiritual practices. And I begin with spirit because it is my belief that that is what is in most existential crisis. So the trilogy mind, body, spirit is reversed, and we explore spirit as an anchor to then go into the body, to then go into the mind. So today, March 1st, a very auspicious day, we begin a whole new chapter. And we're going to explore the mindfulness practice of openness. Now, I want you to all look at me, which is really a weird invitation. Like, yikes, too many eyes, but do it. Look at me. So I want to preface this conversation that openness is different than the cultivation of space. Space is the third spiritual chapter. We're going to begin with openness first. Why? Because openness is the action by which we create space. Without openness, there's no space. So you can see it in my posture, in my movement. We're going to be opening, and when we do, we create this space. And that is supported by the first chapter, which is awareness, to become aware of how open am I. And it's not a judgment call here, it's a discernment call. There are times in our lives for absolute openness, and there are times in our lives where contraction and being closed off is very, very important. Understanding and discerning the two is what we are endeavoring to do. So the first thing I want you to look at is my face. An open face is a face that is soft, wide eyes, lifted eyebrows, open. Okay. And it is supported by the instrument of peace that we spoke highly of last time for the last 2 months, which is, would you look at that? That's the instrument of peace we're going to be, that's going to support some of this practice. Now, you've all heard this a million times. If you've practiced with me at all, you will have heard this. And we joke and we laugh about my expression and the way you say it, which is kind of breathy. Would you look at that? Eyes wide, eyebrows lifted. It's kind of exaggerated, and it's all intentional. And here's why. Would you look at that? Those words are an invitation to cultivate curiosity and wonder. These are qualities of openness. To say it in a breathy way, would you look at that? Is to bring levity to the inquiry. And that again is to encourage an openness. If I were to say, would you look at that? It's a totally different experience, right? Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Openness versus a little bit of aggression. All right. It's so simple. It's so obvious. And yet we forget. So the homework, before I forget, everybody notice faces when you go out today. Notice how many people are frowning. How many people have a furrowed gaze? And notice how your body reacts to it. Do you feel like, ooh, a little aversion? Or are you like, ooh, what's the difference? Just notice, just observe. None of this is original, people. This has been talked about since time immemorial, but I'm just putting it into this contemporary practice as a gentle reminder of you already know this. Now we're going to embody it. Openness. So let's begin with a sentiment of metta. Metta is loving kindness. And I'd like to encourage a spirit of openness around being loving and kind to yourself. What does that mean? To be loving and kind to myself. Here's a little painting I make. On the back I write these little sentiments. This one reads, may your stumbles reveal new sights. May your stumbles reveal new sights. I love this sentiment of metta. And it's because it helps us remember that when we trip and when we stumble and when we wobble, it's uncomfortable. And yet in that discomfort, in that uncertainty, there might be something new that gets our attention. You know, when was the last time, well, it's winter, so we're just now able to get outside. So just think about the last time you put your whole body on the ground, belly on the grass, and looked around. Imagine if you had stumbled and you'd fallen, but then you had this grass level view. What can you see? Is there something new to observe? Can you be open to it? So before I read anything today from this first exploration of this second chapter, I'd like to invite you now to turn your gaze away from me and close your eyes if it's comfortable for you. And take a moment to reflect where you are in the world and take a moment to remember the indigenous people who have been on the land that you now occupy. We are on the land of the Spokane and Kalispell people, among others, I'm certain. And so this is a way to openly connect with many, many people who have stewarded this land wherever you are in the world. Take a moment to drop now into the body and just do a quick scan. Notice in the body if there's anything ill at ease. Notice in the body if there's a posture that's slightly collapsed. I was a little bit collapsed a moment ago, and I brought my shoulders down and back and sat up a little bit taller. And that feels really nice in my body. Notice the rhythm of the breath. You don't need to do anything different. Just simply notice how you're breathing. What's your mood in this moment? And can you be open to allow whatever mood you're experiencing to be present? Do you have any thoughts about that mood? Do you have any stories associated with that mood? When you think about and observe your thoughts, do they string together in some kind of narrative? Let me give you a for instance. This morning, I was looking for something on my computer and I couldn't find it. I have for years harbored a story about my relationship to my computer. That is, I'm inept, I'm incompetent, I can't do technology, I'm stupid, and so on. And so, whenever I encounter a blip on my computer or something's a little bit wonky, I instantly feel frustrated, annoyed, insecure. I doubt my capacity to problem solve. The thoughts start coming in. Remember the time, Julia, this, that, and the other thing? And then before I know it, I'm full blown into a story of how I can't do things. I can't do the simplest thing, like find this stupid thing on the computer. What's the matter with me? There must be something wrong with me. Wow. Would you look at that? All because I couldn't find a folder on my computer. Huh. Wow. Okie dokie. That's a lot. Here's an instrument of peace you're going to hear a lot for this chapter, which is, everything I just said might actually be true. I'm not very tech savvy. I at times feel really inept. Insecurity causes all kinds of collapse in me. I've had experiences where my skill level wasn't enough to meet a task. All of it true. And not the whole truth. That's the new instrument of peace. That's true. And not the whole truth. What else is here? What else is true? So, in this instance, this just happened this morning. There was a time in my life where that experience, not being able to find a folder, feeling really insecure and stupid that I can't navigate my own computer, I can't figure it out. And then the more I get entrenched in that feeling and those thoughts, the more I get in my way. I can't seem to problem solve anything. And that would basically ruin my day. And I would almost feel like I wanted to throw my computer out the window. So much angst that I would become hostile. Fascinating, isn't it? And with practice, I have learned now to implement a little bit of openness. Wow. Look at all this. Look at what I'm feeling. Look at what my body's doing. Look at all these thoughts. Huh. Wow. Whew. What else is here? And for me, 9 times out of 10, what else is there is a call for me to do something different. So this morning, I totally shut down that part of my computer. I'm like, yeah, I can't figure this out right now. And I've got other things to do. So I'm just going to turn that off. I'm going to tune it out. I'll figure it out later. I'll ask for help, whatever. I'm going to do something else. That whatever insertion is ambivalence. And we'll talk about that in the coming months because that's also a spiritual practice. Can't figure it out. I don't even know, whatever. I'm certainly not going to let it ruin my day because I've got other things to do. So I created a whole new flyer and look at that success. And here we go. Open. What else is here? If I had stayed clamped down in that experience, can't do it, can't figure it out, so stupid, so incompetent, so lame, I would have put forth no effort in opening just a crack of possibility, just a tiny little opening for something new to come forward, something else to be revealed, some space for another awareness to emerge. That's what openness does for us. I'd like to read for you the very beginning of this chapter. Mindfulness practice number 2, openness. A friend took a mountaineering class and noticed her reasons for climbing mountains differed from most in the course. Naturally, we discussed this at length. During my younger years, I climbed a few mountains in the northern Cascades, primarily using well-groomed trails and having a few off-trail adventures. In our conversation, we wondered about the nature of striving energy, fueling the curiosity of a mountaineer, the rush of adrenaline and the will to push through, the meticulous planning, mapping, and preparation required. All of this and more define one's motivation and capacity to survive while in pursuit of an achievement. As I reflected on what we shared, it occurred to me that people also climb mountains to access openness. I mean this not only figuratively, but literally. Openness as an intentional departure from the routine of daily living, which often reinforces the habit energy of mind and body. True openness extends our minds beyond our conditioned definitions. To be open-minded is much more than mere tolerance or acceptance. When you climb a mountain, you intentionally put yourself in conditions of vulnerability, open to unknown possibilities despite heavy efforts of anticipatory preparation. To get on a mountain is to challenge and be challenged by everything it presents. Anything can happen on a mountain. Despite the obstacles, the draw is to reach the summit, the highest point of view with a wide open perspective. The place where the saying, the sky is the limit, becomes a humbling and awesome truth. Openness fosters a state of awe where the heart and mind remember the broader view and bigger picture. Relief, fatigue, reflection, humility, and jubilance harmonize for a moment with the ever-present reality that one must still journey on. If you are climbing a mountain, getting to the summit is only half the journey. Openness is not without fear. Awe-inspiring places can often stir up degrees of fright. What makes openness grand is the quality of equanimity, which means inclusivity. In other words, openness possesses a natural capacity to witness anything and everything. It encompasses the tightness and flexibility, the fear and courage, the wild and tame, the disappointment and resilience, the storms and calm. To be open is to Sherpa the weight of the whole human experience. In the absence of openness, we cannot think clearly or breathe with regulated ease. It is all too easy to feel overwhelmed by the distorted state of upheaval, which increases the risk of being unskillful. Our speech becomes unwise and thoughtless. We do not eat or sleep well. We are irritable with strangers. We may even lose touch with our basic humanity. Friends, I love the image of climbing a mountain and Sherpaing the weight of the human experience. I think that's a pretty wonderful image. And I'd like us to together imagine with an open heart and an open mind taking off the backpack, taking off the weight, allowing the body to rest, allowing the Sherpa'd emotional weight, physical weight to just take a break. So maybe in the quiet of this space for the next several minutes or so, you can shake that weight. I'm shaking. I'm wiggling around in my seat. Shake off the weight. The weight of disappointment and confusion, the weight of negative habit energy and regret, the weight of disappointment and failed expectations, the weight of judgment and loss, even the weight of success and joy, the weight of clarity and resilience. Just take off all of that weight. All of it's true and not the whole truth. The truth now is to simply be. In this moment, at the peak of this moment, the summit of this moment, how are you? That's the question. How am I in this moment? And now this moment. And now this moment. And see if you can, on the face, just wear a little relaxation so that however you are can be fully present. No disregard whatsoever. simply the fullness of being. As you reflect in the moments of silence to come, allow the mind the freedom to wander. And whenever you think of it, come back to the breath, take a deep intentional breath in and out, and resume. Enjoy this open practice. friends. The journey of recovery has a powerful spiritual element, but perhaps not for the reasons you might think. It seems to me that we bring forward spirit, the spiritual practices, because what we're trying to recover is not just our understanding of a single or a couple of negative habits, but we're trying to and endeavoring to recover the whole of ourselves here, the whole human spiritual experience. And so, by that very nature, we are encouraging a spirit of growth. And that is openness. And if you don't believe me, just try growing something in a very small, contained space. If you've ever tried to grow seedlings and you forget to take the lid off, pretty soon the seedlings take on these very distorted shapes. And so you want to take the lid off, open up the space for things to flourish. And that is the same thing we're doing here. Sometimes when we keep the mind and our attention fixated on the one negative habit energy wreaking so much havoc in our lives, there is a time and place for that, yes. And there is a time to take the lid off, to open up to the whole of one's life. We are not the sum total of our worst mistakes. We are each of us so much more. To be open is to create space, to see and celebrate all that makes us human, all that makes us spiritual, all that brings us into connection. This is a practice. Would you look at that? Oh, just um, let's just return to our own space, your own body, your own set of emotions, your own emotional landscape, your own thoughts and stories. And just remember that in the boundaried space. Today we heard this wonderful reflection on how sometimes boundaries can become fortresses, sort of inhibiting any access to openness. And this is why in the SatiSeva manuscript, one of the mindfulness practices is the cultivation of the balaklohe, boundaries, as stone walls. Like you see all over in the UK, Celtic remnants. And so this is a bordered way of keeping you in your space and another person in their space, them in their space to have their experience. And we, in the sanctity of our own space, can observe, bear witness, honor, without jumping into the middle of their space and without their stuff coming into our space. We can just keep everything separate and yet connected. Open, in this openness. And that's really paradoxical if you think about it. How can we be separated and yet connected? And if you imagine that pastoral scene of idyllic places like Ireland and even Scotland, where you see these stone borders separating this from that, this paddock from another paddock. They're separated, and yet in that openness, there's this connection as well. And we can offer that for ourselves. But we have to be aware. We have to make the effort to reflect. We have to be open to receive. We have to keep showing up to practice. Remember, friends, one of the Juliaism stickers that we have here is practice makes practice. Striving for perfection is a folly, actually, and it's a source of suffering. And so we drop that folly and we just remember this is all about coming into practice. I'd like to share with you a couple of announcements. The first is that tomorrow morning at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time, there is an offering through Soul Center called Monday Morning Meditations. And this is a meditation where we explore very specific topics for the cultivation of spiritual, physical, and mental well-being. For the month of March, we are going to be meditating on the stories we tell. And that appears on the Soul Center website. If you'd like to register for that, you can. You can register for the whole month. You can register just to receive the audio recordings, whatever you'd like to do. But this is another wonderful opportunity to meditate in community. Monday evening is our Recovery Dharma practice with John, and we're going to be exploring for the month of March the third noble truth. Once we understand the conditions of our own discomfort and the conditions of our comfort, we experience harmony. When we can include the good and the bad with some degree of equanimity, life becomes harmonized. Life becomes more peaceful. We feel more centered and anchored. And that's the third noble truth. There is an end to suffering. There is an end to craving. There is a way to get solid in the mind and the heart. Lo has posted in the chat the link to Soul Center. You can see all of the things going on there. We have so much content. We meet Wednesday morning at 11:30. At 11 a.m. for SatiSeva, where we'll continue this practice of exploring openness. We'll meet 4 times this month, the first and third Sunday and Wednesday. On the spring equinox, which is a Saturday, March 21st, there is a silent retreat in the afternoon, and you can join me both in person and online. There will also be a ritual where we break the silence and we welcome the spirit of renewal, celebrating the equinox. That should be pretty beautiful. And the last thing I'd like to announce is on April 4th, also a Saturday, we've invited a Sangha member who is just finished her master's degree in nutrition, and she's going to teach a workshop all about looking at our relationship to sugar and the body's ability to process and work with sugar. Healthy sugars, not so healthy sugars, why cravings happen, how we can work with nutrition to subside, to really handle those cravings, particularly if you're someone like me that has sugar spikes and craves sugar a lot. So I know that through nutrition, I can really temper those cravings. And so Stevie's going to help us get a little smarter about our own bodies and our relationship to nourishment. Email me with any questions or concerns. And last, if you'd like to make a Dana offering, you can do so. There's a donation jar in the back of Soul Center, and you can also make a Dana offering online. And again, email me with any questions or concerns. Let's end our practice today, friends, with a dedication of merit. Breathing in this spirit of openness. Breathing out new possibilities. Breathing in the spaciousness of new possibilities. Breathing out a more present way of being. Breathing in presence and being. Breathing out peace and healing. Friends, we do this practice for ourselves, and by extension, it ripples out into the world and positively affects other people. On this beautiful sunny day here in Spokane, particularly if you're local, I would encourage you to practice the instrument of peace called a sun pause, and just stand under the sun in the beautiful light. Consider it a cosmic spotlight, and just stand there for 8 minutes. 8 minutes is the time it takes for the radiance, that warmth of the sun, to reach you. 8 minutes. And it's so fascinating because 8 minutes is no time, and yet it's a long time too. So bring that spirit of pause. Allow yourself that energy, that replenishment for 8 minutes, and see how you feel. And then bring that brightness and that warmth out into your day, and be fearless in sharing it. Be open to sharing it. I hope to see you again in either our recovery Dharma practices or our continued SatiSeva. In the meantime, I wish for you a wonderful day. We'll see you again soon. Namaste.